All right, so we're looking at Sri Nisargadatta's I Am That. And he was just talking about us as individuals and sort of dissolving the ego. And the questioner last week made this very funny statement. You did not tell me the uses of the unmanifested. You know, what's the use of the unmanifested? Oh, well, anyway, I'm not to belittle the question, but I mean, if something's unmanifested, how is it going to have a use? You know, it's it's in a state of non-manifestation. So the questioner says, he says, well, all of this Advaita, all of this stuff that you're positing, this philosophical material, it's all fine on its own level. You know, it all resolves itself very nicely philosophically when you talk about it, and it's intellectually very comforting. But how does it work in daily life? What do we do with this? And Maharaj says the daily life is a life of action. Whether you like it or not, you must function. Whatever you do for your own sake accumulates and becomes explosive. One day it goes off and plays havoc with you and your world. When you deceive yourself that you work for the good of all, it makes matters worse. For you should not be guided by your own ideas of what is good for others. A man who claims to know what is good for others is dangerous. Wow. So he's just talking, this life is a life of action. It's a life of doing. We're caught in a wheel of samskara that's just rolling us happily along through the world. We're making up our delusions as we go to sort of explain our situation and to find some level of security in it. But he says, whatever you do for your own sake accumulates and becomes explosive, right? So when you are living out of ego space, uh, your actions, I like how he says explosive, because you don't know the long-term effect of them. We talked a little bit this last week about when you fulfill a desire, how it's got a whole string of implications that unfold out in front of you. You know, you buy that new car. It's like I was thinking about that here. When I first got here, someone had an old car that they wanted to donate to me to use. And, I asked a bunch of questions about it. I wasn't being ungrateful, but I was thinking about, because Swami Prabhupada was always really big on thinking very clearly about things. And so, this car was an old car, so I was thinking, gosh, how am I going to repair that thing when it breaks down? How am I going to pay for the gas to keep that thing going? Where am I going to get the money for insurance to keep that thing, safe on the roads? And then paying for registration. And I thought to myself, I'll walk. I'll walk. life, life is much simpler that way. And, and just all of those obligations are gone. So this is what he's talking about. It's taking a look at the decisions of the things, the desires you decide to fulfill, and think about, are they things that are going to bind you? Are they going to blow up on you someday? Or are they going to be helpful to you? And so when you choosing your house, do you choose a house that you're going to have to be paying a huge amount for to pay it off? Of course, that's the only choice these days, but just as you accumulate things, think about them. How is this going to affect your life? What obligations is this going to put in your life? Is it going to take away your freedom? And to pay attention in that way. And so anything that you do for your own sake, something that you do out of your own desire, you are responsible for carrying the burden of all that it entails. And you're the one that's going to be left holding that. So be aware of that. It's not a right or wrong question. It's just a state of being aware, knowing what you're doing. When you deceive yourself that you work for the good of all, right? I could have been like, oh, well, if I get this car, then then I can pick somebody up at the airport, and I can be of service to others, and all of that. I'll get this car for the good of humanity. you know so if we are deceive ourselves into thinking that we're fulfilling our desires for the sake of others, he says it makes matters worse, for you should not be guided by your own ideas of what is good for others. Right, this is a big deal. This is why we don't pray for specific things for people, or why some people don't pray for specific things for people, because we're not in a situation to know what's best for someone. We're not in a position to be able to determine what is good for them. And you go and you well, there's so many stories that we could do. Of course, the first one on my mind is an offensive one, but when you're giving money away, you have to consider. It's like, you're doing this for the good of that person. If you're doing it for the good of the person, how do you know that that's what they need, or that's going to give them what they need, or help them with what they need, right? And so this is why we do our service out of inspiration and as worship. That we don't do things by thinking that we're the solution to somebody else's problem. Let me close my door here just a second. So,
Or could you also mute us, please?
oh, yes. Kidding. All right. So don't everything that we do in the moment for its own sake, not for a result. And so if you help somebody, quote, around the help, because that's just what we're questioning, how do we know all the variables around someone's life to know what's helpful for them? What do we know of their karmas? What do we even know of the truth of our being? The question gets really big really quick. What assumptions are you making that are making you think that you're helpful, or that you're a solution? So you just offer it in the moment, and you offer it to the divine in that person as worship, and let the result go to the Lord in that sense. And so the questioner says, well, gosh, how is one to work then? How are we supposed to do anything with that kind of weight on our shoulders? And Maharaj says, neither for yourself nor for others, but for the work's own sake. Right? So this is pure karma yoga here. That when you do anything, you don't do it for its result. You do it as an act of worship. Right? And that is how you live in this world. If you do things for results, then you get caught in the cycle of karma. Then you're kind of having to work out all of the things that are coming your way for that. But when you do things for their own sake in the moment, and results are not the concern, it's the quality of the effort, the quality of the investment, the presence that you're putting into what you're doing, the sobriety of your mind while you're doing it, the clarity, the mood with which what you've set yourself, in the inner shrine. And that this is how life goes forward. And that this way you don't get caught up in the stress of the results. You don't get caught up in the being sorry for the past, or being, making mistakes in the past. So you don't do the work for yourself or for others, but for its own sake. A thing worth doing is its own purpose and its own meaning. Make nothing a means to something else, right? There's a nice little mantra for your mind. Make nothing a means to something else. Don't have your actions grow from desire. Desires come from body and mind, right? Let the actions come from your nature, from the self, from the self, which is manifesting pure love, which is manifesting pure wisdom through your being. And so if you work from that space in the moment as an act of worship, then you'll be free from the entanglement of the world, and you'll enjoy the world because the quality of your work will be greatly improved. The quality of your disposition will be greatly improved. Your ability to love somebody, to be present with somebody, will be greatly improved. Your freedom from anxiety will be a great improvement, because this will just take you out of that loop, and it will place you in a state of contentment. Because what is to do something for its own sake? It's to find contentment in the path itself, in the doing itself, right? So there's a hint here for our spiritual life as well. We do it for its own sake. We don't do it with a goal or an achievement in mind. We sit and we be with the beloved for the sake of being with the beloved. And then we don't get all caught up in the quality of our meditations, the amount of our meditations. Everything becomes an expression of your nature, expression of Satchitananda. And anything inspired by love and wisdom is going to be beautiful. So neither for yourself nor for others. Work for its own sake. A thing worth doing is its own purpose and its own meaning. Make nothing a means to something else. Bind not. That's what that means. That's what that means. Don't tie yourself up. If you do things for results, you're tied. You're bound, right? You've got a vested interest in something you no longer control. And that's going to be trouble for you at some point. God does not create one thing to serve another. Each is made for its own sake. Because it is made for itself, it does not interfere. You are using things and people for purposes alien to them, and you play havoc with the world and yourself. Right? So when you come from a place of ignorance, a place where you don't know what's best, and you assume that you do know what's best, and you force these things into the world as a manifestation, you affect a lot of people. And these things may or may not explode at some point. And so really all of this is just talking about being present, being in the moment, finding your peace here and now. Don't go looking for anything. If you need anything in the moment, settle into the moment until you feel that fullness, until you feel that completeness inside. The mind will argue, the mind will do whatever it's going to do. You are not the mind. So you just sit there despite the mind. The body doesn't want to sit still, doesn't want to do nothing. Despite the feelings of the body, you are not the body. And so you sit there in the presence. Because this moment is the only thing that's able to give you anything. Right? Your future can't give you anything. It's not there. The past can't give you anything. It's done. It's given what it has. So the only place that anything can be accomplished and that anything can be done is here and now, right? And in the pure here and now, there's just awareness, just being, just the principle of God manifesting is what this moment is. And so we bring ourselves into harmony with that, into harmony with our nature of Satchitananda, and let it create beauty spontaneously, without calculation, without manipulation, just simply being in the moment, in the presence of our divine love, of our divine nature, doing things for their own sake, with excellence and care because it's worship, and setting it out there for the good of humanity, as it were, and picking up the next thing and going forward like that. All right. Questioner, our real being is all the time with us, you say. How is it that we do not notice it? Right. So our real being, Satchitananda, it's with us always. But why don't we notice it? Why don't we see it? Maharaj, yes, you are always the supreme, but your attention is fixed on things, physical or mental. When your attention is off a thing and not yet fixed on another, in the interval, you are pure being. When through the practice of discrimination and detachment, viveka vairagya, You lose sight of sensory and mental states. Pure being emerges as the natural state, right? And so he's saying that our problem is that we're always putting our attention on things, right? Always putting our attention on things. And the problem with that is that the Upanishads say very clearly the eyes will never have enough of seeing, and the ears will never have enough of hearing, right? So you will look and you will see and you will appreciate, but you will be thirsty and hungry your whole life. These things cannot fulfill you. And so don't be distracted, because he says in that space between your distractions, in that space between your distractions, in that space you are pure being. You are that self that you are seeking. So in between thoughts, you are the divine. Right? But again, that can't be objectified. It can't be placed in front of the senses. And so if you remember a few weeks ago, Maharaj was saying to live in such a way that the space between objects is as important as the objects, and the silence between words is as important as the words, because it is the space which allows for objects and the silence which allows for sound, right? And so that's saying the same thing, that the silence that you're not aware of right now, that is the thing, that peace, the space in between objects, that space, that is the thing that we want to become aware of. And so the practice of becoming aware of space and silence is really the practice of valuing the space between thoughts more than the thoughts, right? And finding that inner peace. Because to live in spontaneity is to live without egoism, without calculation, without taking into consideration circumstances and conditions of the moment, and simply being free in the moment. You bring your own circumstance, your own condition to the moment. So in time, when through the practice of discernment and detachment, right, which is really just the practice of becoming constantly aware inside, and that for the bhaktas, that's the awareness of the presence of God. For the jnani, it's awareness of awareness, the being, putting your focus on being and not on the doing. Then pure being emerges as our natural state. We become aware, this is pretty great. This has always been this way. Amazing. The silence has always been there for me. The stillness of the emptiness has always been there for me. And we find that it's not so empty, and it's and not so still, in the sense that it's lying in seed form, the full potential of pure love, the full potential of pure being, and the full potential of that pure wisdom, right? A wisdom not stirred in with me and mine. How does one bring to an end this sense of separateness, this idea that we're somehow not this whole, which is a really interesting situation that we're in? I love, again, that dream state. You think of yourself in the dream, you feel so individual in that dream. You feel so separate from the whole. I can remember looking at mountains in my dreams, and looking at flowers, and swimming in water, and flying through the air, actually. All of these things, so you have all of that experience of other in the dream, but there is no other in the dream. It's all your own mind stuff. It's your own mind that you're swimming through, your own mind that you're talking with, that you're interacting with. So he says, how do we get rid of this sense of separateness? By focusing the mind on the I am, on the sense of being. I am so-and-so dissolves. I am a witness only remains, and that too submerges in I am all. Then the all becomes the one, and the one yourself, not to be separate from me. Abandon the idea of separate I, and the question of whose experience will not arise. Right? So again, it's bringing that idea into the moment, because it's when you use your mind and you use your body for things, when you are investing in trying to produce a perfect future or a better future in that sense, and you're bound in that cycle of thinking, that gives you your sense of separateness. That gives you the sense of not being in control. That gives you the sense of not being part of the whole, because you expose yourself to so many things that you don't understand in that regard. Whereas this other idea of being in the moment, seeing it as it is, and doing what is necessary in the moment for its own sake, as worship, removes that sense and makes you a part of the whole, because you're not working out of a mind that has an idea for a change or something different. You're working in a pure acceptance of the moment and responding with love and wisdom, which is naturally going to be a harmonious response, right? It's going to be something in line with the nature of the moment, and it's going to be in harmony with the nature of the moment, and it won't produce the stress, of anxieties around it. So abandon the idea of a separate I. Abandon all ideas, really, in that sense. Be in the moment purely as you are, and be in the moment just available. Sit there as if you were that butler that Peace Pilgrim talks about. That she sees every moment as an opportunity for service, and that she sees her life as standing like a butler, standing and waiting at the dinner table at a big party for hoo-has, that he stands there and he's not sitting there daydreaming, thinking about his own things. He's not mixing his mind up. He's sitting there purely alert, scanning that room, not with any idea in particular, but in an idea of being available for service. And so to have that kind of awareness is what happens when we live for love. When we live for love's sake, that's what we're talking about here. When everything is coming from an expansion of our nature and not from a cogitation of ideas, not a sequence of calculated thoughts, but from a spontaneous movement of love in the moment, because that is what's moving us anyway. And once we leave this noisy area up here, then we can feel that love. We're closer to being in touch with the love that is emanating from us always, and is actually the motive in anything that we're doing. We become aware of that, and then we put it first, and we live in harmony with it. And that brings us into harmony with the whole, right? Love is the cord that produces oneness, that ties us into a singularity. It's not sameness, it's love. Love is what will bring us together. Should write that song sometime. You speak from your own experience. How can I make it mine? These are some good questions. Maharaj, you speak of my experience as different from your experience because you believe that we are separate, but we are not. On a deeper level, my experience is your experience. Dive deep within yourself and you will find it easily and simply. Go in the direction of I am. Right? Where does that come out? Where do we come out if we follow the I am? You come out in the shrine of the heart. Right? You'll come out in the shrine of the heart. You'll be there in a full companionship with love itself. That will be your company, wisdom itself. So just that experience of being, that I am, there's so much bliss hidden in there. It's such a wonderful experience, wonderful thing to do every now and then, is during the day when you do get caught up fluttering in the breeze of the day, or if you're sitting on the bus and have some time, or you're sitting in the doctor's waiting room or something, having some time, go into this notion of just being aware of being aware of your I am. And it's not to think about it. So don't go thinking about it. Don't cogitate it. Just in that silence, become aware, spread your awareness. They have some of those relaxation meditations where you like think of your toes, feel them getting heavy, feel them melting into the floor underneath you. We'll do that same thing, but don't have a particular in mind like that. Just become aware of your toes. And without letting go of the awareness of your toes, be aware of your whole foot. And sit there and be aware, just open to it. Then open your mind to keep that and your whole your shins. How long has it been since you've thought about your shins? And open up to that experience and then expand. And you will find the bliss that is built into you. You'll experience the wonder that is you, that is being. And just open up like that all the way through. Just open up to the moment. Feel things you don't normally feel. Receive information from parts of you that you don't normally receive information from. And have no point in it, no purpose in it. Just keep opening. Just keep opening that awareness so that it spreads. It keeps, because it's infinite in its nature. You have plenty of awareness to be aware of everything. Let it open. Keep opening. Keep withdrawing from that nozzle of the ego that keeps making the mind want to look at a particular thing. That's the problem. See, that ego wants constantly the mind to go and pick a thing out of this myriad of stuff that we could be aware of. And so to dissolve ego, go the opposite way. Open that nozzle up. Let everything in, not just what the mind is interested in, not just what the thoughts are interested in, not just what your motivations and stories are interested in, but open to everything and see what that does to you. There's a wonderful calm in it. There's a wonderful peacefulness in it, a wonderful beauty in it. That's the best way, because you can then have that sense, that same sense when the ego sits and looks at a sunset where it's focusing on a particular, which is so beautiful and gives you that same radiance. You can have that same radiance without a sunset. It's just a matter of opening and awareness. That's all. Things will become beautiful. Things are by nature beautiful. Even the terrifying things, things are by nature beautiful. And to sit in silence, free of any motive, free of any desire, you can see the beauty in things, And in a funny kind of way, I talked about this when digital cameras first came out, and how wonderful it was to not have to think about what picture I was taking because I didn't have to pay for it to be processed, right? It used to be that pictures cost almost $1 a piece, and and then when we had digital cameras, all of a sudden, you could take pictures of anything. And I remember taking that camera out on my walks, and my goal would be to take pictures of beautiful things. But when you walk around with the idea of taking pictures of beautiful things, a very big problem arises. You begin to see beautiful things everywhere. And you start taking weird pictures of rusty bolts at the bottom of water gutters, and you start finding odd cracks in the sidewalk to be utterly beautiful, and you take pictures of all these things. And I suppose if you're a good photographer, when you get back and look at the pictures later, you're like, oh yes, that was beautiful. Unfortunately, mine, I go back and look through the pictures and I'd be like, why in the world did I take a picture of that? What was I thinking? But see, this is the point. It's like there are these states of mind, and if you can put your mind in a state of openness, a state of receptivity, beauty is one of the first things you start seeing everywhere, no matter where you are. That's the interesting thing. You can be on the bus, looking at some ratted hair of some woman in front of you, and suddenly you just you feel story, you feel humanity, you feel connection. It's wonderful. And this is our nature, to be plugged in and expanding that love and the sphere of that love everywhere, so that we can then become aware of it enough to hear its promptings. What are the promptings of love, right? It's very different from listening to the promptings of desire, which is what living in the mind is, right? Living in the heart is being able to hear the promptings of love, of what you are. And so this is where we sit. On chapter 25, hold on to the I am. It's such a funny thing because it's always there. Why would you need to hold on to it? Because we forget about it. We get so caught up in the things, right? We get so caught up in the cycles of things, the conditions of things, that we forget the stillness. We forget the I am that is containing all of it, that is unfolding all of it. The questioner asks, are you ever glad or sad? Do you know joy and sorrow? Maharaj, call them as you please. To me, they are states of mind only, and I am not the mind. Right? So he says, the guy says, are you ever happy or sad? Like that's important, right? We feel like that's important. There's a part of us like, well, what, you don't feel anything? you know, it's like you don't think anything, you don't feel anything. What good are you? Because we come at it with no experience of living in the moment. We come at it with only experience of running after things. And when you're running after things, joy and sadness, feelings, emotions, thoughts are all very important. But to experiencing the moment, none of that is important. That is renunciation. To experience the moment is to experience nothing in particular, which allows you to experience everything in its harmony together. So this gladness and sadness, joy and sorrow, these opposites, call them anything you want. We call them joy and sorrow, and there's a certain romanticism to that. He says, call them whatever you want. Call them, dip and dupe instead of happiness and joy. To me, they're states of mind. They don't have anything to do with you. They can't actually, joy in the mind can't actually give you joy. The joy in the mind can distract you from the joy of being, but it can't give you anything, right? It's only a temporary notion, a wave that's crashing on the mind. That's all it is. Let go. This is not what you're seeking. This is not what you are. You are the observer of this. And any joy that what you're observing gives to you was already there. That's the important thing. That's realization. When you come to know that all that you are looking for in all of the objects around you, that all of that is already within you, right? That if you ever do meet that perfect person and you feel that deep love for them, that deep love was just waiting for the opportunity of that person. But that deep love was always present, was always there in you, always available. So instead of waiting for an opportunity for that to manifest, allow it to manifest without an object. Allow it to be your state of mind. Be in love with everything. Be in love with the idea of love. Call them as you please. To me, they are states of mind, and I am not the mind. Is love a state of mind? Again, it depends on what you mean by love. Desire is, of course, a state of mind, but the realization of unity is beyond mind. To me, nothing exists by itself, right? So that's what opening to the whole will teach you, right? Instead of us always looking at the particular driven by egoism, where we're trying to manipulate the particular to give us a different particular, when you're in the gum works of the machinery at that level, that's all you're seeing, right? You're not standing back on the observation deck looking at the giant engine and being amazed at the size of this giant engine. No, you're in there trying to manipulate these individual screws and whatnot in this area here, and you're not seeing the unity of the whole, the beauty of the whole, the harmony of the whole. So he says, yes, desire is, of course, a state of mind, because desire is always a manipulation of the particulars. But the realization of unity is beyond mind, right? Because mind only handles the waves, the particulars, right? Pure mind is the infinite mind. Pure mind has no me and mine in it, which means it has no waves. It's just a calm, silent, presence, as it were. It is the envelope which contains everything. To me, nothing exists by itself. All is the self. All is myself. Now, that's a big leap. That's a hard one to say. Oh, that comes from being quiet. It does. It does ultimately. But this notion, it's part of this discernment that we're talking about. It's my old stale story about how you're not seeing that light. That light is hitting your eyes. It's not going into your head. Your head's just getting information from your eye. And you've constructed that light. You've constructed that light as a symbol. So you live in a world of symbols. You see, that's a long way around of describing what he's describing. You come to realize everything is within you. If you discern, if you watch carefully at the experience of experience, being aware of the I am, you begin to see these things. You begin to see a world without boundaries, in which the change is nothing happening. All is the self. All is myself. To see myself in everybody and everybody in myself most certainly is love. Right? So to see unity is love. To build bridges to one another is love. To look at people in a way that removes difference is love. To allow people to be as they are and accept them, embrace them as they are. That's love, right? And then to be with them in the moment without agenda. That's love. That's when we can hear each other. That's when we can learn from each other. When we put down our goals and our objectives for each other, when we stop meeting the world in the way of with an attitude of let me help you, but we see God in all things. This is where we're going. Questioner, when I see something pleasant, I want it. Who exactly wants it? The self or the mind? Ooh, good question. When I see something pleasant, I want it. Now, see, there's the problem, right? Doesn't that remind you of our famous Garden of Eden story? When the serpent is pointing at the tree and saying, oh, look at that beautiful fruit up there. And she looks at it and she goes through that 3-step process. She saw that it was beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. Then she wanted it. It looked like it would be good for food. And then she believed that it would fulfill her. It would make her like God. So that 3-step process is what he's talking about. When I see something pleasant, I want it. Yes, there is the trap of Maya right there. Who exactly wants it? The self or the mind, Maharaj? The question is wrongly put. There is no who. There is desire, there is fear, there is anger, and the mind says, this is me, this is mine. There is no thing which could be called me or mine. Desire is a state of the mind, perceived and named by the mind. Without the mind perceiving and naming, where is desire? Right? And this to me has become one of the most beautiful truths for moving forward in spiritual life. Because so many times we approach spiritual life by entering the mind and battling it out, going into the mind and dealing with our desires and pushing against our urges and trying to control all of these things, because that's the ego's idea. The ego is always looking to go into the particular and manipulate for a certain outcome. But he here is revealing a beautiful method that is infinitely better. Simply withdraw. Simply withdraw. Look at the mind and say, yes, I see all of those desires. I am not the mind. Right? And put your mind back in the shrine. Put your attention back in the shrine. Right? Back on that full awareness. And you become aware of yourself. You become aware of your bliss, your nature, your love, your being. And that moves you through the day. Right? So the question is put wrongly. There is no who. There's only the conditions of fear, desire, and anger in the mind. And the mind says, this is me, this is mine, right? We identify with it. We attach our soul, we attach our being, which is existence. And we therefore give our thought existence, give it reality, give our desire existence, give our fear existence by identifying with it. I am afraid. I want. You know? There is no thing which could be called me or mine. These are all merely states of your mind. Objects have nothing to do with me and mine. It's the mind, the grasping mind, that turns them into objects of me and mine. Without the mind perceiving and naming, where is desire? So see, simply by coming to the understanding that you are not the mind, desires drop away. They become immediately, just with that statement, they become a mere echo of what they were. When you realize that it's your identity with them that gave them power over you, and that by withdrawing that attachment, withdrawing that power from them, they become nothing. They become nothing. And with a pure mind, a mind that's not being disturbed by me and mine, there's no arising of desire in it. Because it has to be identified with the body, or it has to be identified with mind in order for desire to exist there. Right? Without that identity, there is none. There's only peace. There's only bliss. There's only that pregnant infinity that Eckhart Tolle talks about. That it's not nothingness, it's not emptiness, it's pure potential. So there's nothing manifested there. It looks like nothing, but the fact of it is the source of everything. It is the whole. Questioner, but is there such a thing as perceiving without naming? Oh, boy, he's on it today. Is there such a thing as perceiving without naming? Maharaj, of course. Naming cannot go beyond the mind, while perceiving is consciousness itself. Right? So there's that whole area beyond the mind he's talking about. The vast majority of isness is unnamed, right? Look, think of space out there. Just let your mind wander just into the expanse, however it wanders there. How much of that is named? Right? But it's all there. But it's not separated and categorized in mind yet. So you see, there are things assumed that are not named, that are not within the mind. Naming cannot go beyond the mind, while perceiving is consciousness itself. So without mind, or with pure mind, let's say, there's not really any way to be without mind, because pure mind and Brahman are one. So we can't really separate from mind in its pure state. Mind in its pure state is the divine. It is our being. Yeah. It's universal in nature and quiet in nature. So yes, there is perceiving without naming. The naming is just in the mind. The mind is what names. Perceiving, that which is you, that awareness, the perceiver, that is consciousness itself. That is the big. Just leave it at that. That is the big. Oh, interesting. His next question. Well, when somebody dies, what exactly happens? Maharaj. Nothing happens. Something becomes nothing. Nothing was, nothing remains. Right? My hand is here. Now my hand isn't there. What of that? It was, it isn't. That's everything. This whole life is like that. That's what we're observing all the time. The world of the changing isn't real. Ramakrishna says that. That which changes is unreal. That which is unchanging alone is real. And so all of this stuff just pops in and pops out. That's why we say, if you discern, what do you see? You see potting soil. That's what you see everywhere. Potting soil. You look at your face, you wash it in the morning, you're washing potting soil. Someday there'll be a nice mushroom growing right out of there. Someday, the 13-year-old boy in me is waking up. wants to talk about all the gross things that are going to happen to the body. But you see this notion, we see the change and we find it all to be real, and yet how can it be? How can it be there and then not there? How can it be this and then that? What is it that was the tree that now is no longer a tree, but has become ash, which has now become concrete, which has now become a temple, which has now become a ruin, which has now become an apartment building? It's like everything, everywhere, you can see the unity in that also. Everything as it comes out of nothingness stands for a moment and dissolves back into nothingness. What is it that comes out of nothingness? What is it that's sustained for a moment? And what is it that returns to nothingness? And can something that was return to nothingness? So was there ever anything there but nothingness? Right? And of course, we think about that from normal state of mind. We're like, what are you tripping on? What are you thinking? That is crazy. And yet, I'm going to drag you right back to that dream again. In that dream, you're going to see a car. Is there a car in your head? Better be a small one if there is, right? There's no car there, but you will see a car. You'll experience a car. You'll even get in it and drive it, maybe. You'll notice the color of the upholstery. But is there a car? There is no car. Right? And so we live in a mind. This is a real truth. We live in a mind, not in a world. And the reality of things here is the same as the reality of things in a dream. There is an ultimate reality behind them. There is a mind. There is something, we'll just call it mind stuff. Right? That car in your dream is made out of mind stuff. And everything else in that dream is made out of mind stuff. And mind stuff is amazing, because each little particle of mind stuff carries the full potential of any manifestation. You can take that little particle of man stuff, boom, it's a car. Boom, it's a person. Boom, it's an ocean. Boom, it's a tree. Boom, it's a mountain. It can be all of those things. But what is it? What is the thing in and of itself? That is divine. That is divine. And so be wondrous as you look at it. This world, watch it, look at it, see it. And everything that draws your attention, look at it and ask it, what are you? What is your essence? What is your nature? If I grind you all the way up, what do you become? If I leave you in a box for 1,000,000 years, what will I find when I open it again? Right? This is the way to live in this world, by looking through everything at its essence, and then you will fall in love with it in a sense of wonder and beauty, really, and know it to be your very own self. And all the fear drops away because you've known your nature to be pure love. And so you insist everything that you see, taste, touch, hear, smell, and think, you follow it to its root. Follow that link of chain. Where is this connected to? It's always Satchitananda, always pure love. That's discernment. So what happens when somebody dies? Well, nothing happens. Something becomes nothing. Nothing was, nothing remains. Questioner, well, surely there's a difference between the living and the dead. You speak of the living as dead and the dead as living, Maharaj. Why do you fret at one man dying and care little for the millions dying every day? Entire universes are imploding and exploding every moment. Am I to cry over them? One thing is quite clear to me. All that is, lives and moves and has its being in consciousness. And I am in and beyond that consciousness. I am in it as the witness. I am beyond it as being. Wow, that paragraph right there is enough to think about for a very long time. There is so much beauty in that to unpack. Why fret at one man dying and care little for the millions dying every day? Right? Entire universes are imploding and exploding in every moment. Entire universes. Wow. Am I to cry over them? One thing is quite clear to me. All that is, all that lives, all that moves, all that has its being in consciousness, and I am in and beyond that consciousness. I am in it as the witness, right? So Mother can step into the power. Brahman can step into his power and become Shakti, right? And see it as witness, or he can be within himself as being, as existence itself. So, and all disappears. Everything is there. Surely you can tell when your child is ill, don't you? Maharaj, I don't get flustered. I just do the needful, right? That's being in the moment. You're not doing things for itself, for anything. You're doing it simply because it is. I just do the needful. My child is sick. I don't sit there and think about the story of sickness. I do what is needful. I'm present. I'm fully with them. I hold them. I give them their medicine. I take them to the doctor if that is the inspiration. But I'm fully present with them in that moment. And then that sickness changes because everything changes. Either it changes for this and they get better and go on, or it changes and they become part of the whole, again, the emptiness, as it were. It's not creating and attaching to story. It's being in the present, which is the only thing that remains through time. This isness. I don't get flustered. I just do the needful. And so when you feel yourself getting anxious, try and remember this. I don't get flustered. I do the needful. What needs to be done? Let me do it. What needs to be done now? Let me do it. And you just do in the moment one thing. The story will change. Don't get caught up in the story. Be in the moment and do what is needful. Remove it from the story. Let the story run around you like a river around a rock, but you don't move. You do what is needful. I do not worry about the future, right? Bringing it to the moment. A right response to every situation is in my nature. Beautiful. If you know your nature, know that all right responses are in it. You don't have to worry. Just silence the mind, be present, and do what is needful. A right response to every situation is in my nature. I do not stop to think what to do. I don't create a story. I don't employ time, space, and causation. I do not stop to think what to do. I act and I move on. You do what is needful. Results do not affect me. I do not even care whether they are good or bad. Whatever they are, they are. If they come back to me, I deal with them afresh, or rather, I happen to deal with them afresh. There is no sense of purpose in my doing anything. Things happen as they happen, not because I make them happen, but it is because I am that they happen. In reality, nothing ever happens. When the mind is restless, it makes Shiva dance. Like the restless waters of the lake make the moon dance. It is all appearance, due to wrong ideas. All right, we have just summarized all of the Vedanta in one paragraph. What a beautiful, beautiful idea. I'm going to read it again, if you don't mind, and just kind of pause a little bit. I don't get flustered. I just do the needful. I do not worry about the future. A right response to every situation is in my nature. I do not stop to think what to do. I act and I move on. Results do not affect me. I do not even care whether they are good or bad. Whatever they are, they are. If they come back to me, I deal with them afresh, or rather, I happen to deal with them afresh. There is no sense of purpose in my doing anything. Things happen as they happen, not because I make them happen, but it is because I am that they happen. In reality, nothing ever happens. When the mind is restless, it makes Shiva dance, like the restless waters of the lake make the moon dance. It is all appearance due to wrong ideas. That's beautiful. That's just the beauty of a fountain. The water just trickles and follows all of its rules. It just is. And beauty is the result. The water doesn't calculate where it will fall, doesn't calculate how it will move and catch the sun, doesn't worry about its destination, doesn't worry about whether it's cycling or fresh. It just is in its place, in its moment, according to its nature. And the result is beautiful. All right. That